Andrey, and Minister of Education and Science of the Russian Federation, Andrey Fursenko. I would like to say that
business in both countries. Thank you. Andrey, the electrochemists, I'm sure they are American citizens, except they were not born in the United States. They've been naturalized, so they can be presidents. It doesn't matter. My dear colleagues, our time is limited. 2 minutes is your time frame. I now wish to recognize 2 participants in this forum, Zakhar Smushkin and John Faraci. Alien Pulp and International Paper heads. Let them decide between themselves who will start the ball rolling, and you will understand why I want to recognize both of them. Well, we need 50% more energy because there's 2 of us, more time because there's 2 of us. I would like to join many of those who have already taken the floor and suggested to change some of the existing Russian legal framework, particularly Mr. Summers, and we can't agree more. We can subscribe to every word he said. In our area, in which for over 2.5 years we've been working together with International Paper, we have managed to accomplish certain results. Because this year we have embarked on the first in the past 30 years serious modernization project of Russian pulp combine. We also intend to build a new one in Siberia. It'll cost to the tune of $700 million. Another large project that we intend to realize, implement in the European Russia, also relates to a production facility for office paper. In terms of, or viewed from the vantage point of our company, I would say that we're moving ahead fast enough. However, Mr. Shokhin, you have called on us to come up with proposals. The Russian side is competing with others for investment. We are competing with other industries that will be only too happy to accommodate investment. We therefore need to improve by way of improving service, by offering rebates, etc., etc. We should be talking about reimbursement for the costs of infrastructural projects. This is a key element. After this current crisis, what we're doing is brownfield. We're just trying to add to what's already available. However, if we talk greenfield, this is really key. Reimbursement of the investment. See nothing of the regulatory things that need to be improved.
I'll be very brief. Just as International Paper has been doing business in Russia since 1999. Zahar mentioned the commitments we've made through the joint venture. But in addition, we've invested $1.5 billion since we've been in Russia. And the comments I'm going to make relate to that capital investment because I think it's an important issue for Russian manufacturing to be competitive in what's increasingly a global world for manufactured goods. Lots of times when you talk about productivity, you talk about labor productivity. The point I want to make, and I'll be brief, is capital productivity. We have lots of opportunities around the world to invest because there are lots of growth markets, especially the BRIC countries. And we've done a lot of benchmarking around capital productivity, and there are really 4 factors I want to touch on, one of which Russia is very good at, 3 of which I think need a lot of attention, and some of the solutions have already been mentioned. The 4 factors are cost, time to complete, complexity, and execution and performance. And I have to say, in our experience in Russia over the past 10 years, we know how to execute and perform very well. On the first 3, cost, time to complete, compared to other countries around the world, particularly China, Brazil, and North America, I think there's both a challenge and an opportunity. And just to give you some metrics here, it costs about twice as much to build the same capacity in Russia as it costs in China. It takes about 70% more time to produce that, to complete that same project in Russia than it does in China. And Russia has about the highest complexity. Now, Russia is less expensive than North America, but in terms of aiming for the best, and I think as we look at sending capital around the world, Russia has an opportunity and a challenge. So what can be done? Some of the solutions, I think, have already been mentioned. One thing that hasn't been mentioned, I think transparent best practices in terms of how business is done is a big, big factor. Been a lot of talk about it. I think there's a lot of progress to be made in terms of actually making changes. Clear, consistent regulation. Infrastructure was mentioned, others have mentioned. And education, training, and workforce development. I think those four things will go a long way, kind of bringing the capital productivity of Russia up to the best in the world, and then it will be easier for Russia to attract more foreign direct investment in an important sector, which is manufacturing.
There was a joke in the Soviet times that the results of election do not depend on how voters actually vote, but it depends on those who count the votes. Actually, the same pattern applied to the United States a few years back. But I would like to hypothesize that a way out of the crisis is not how the real sector or financial sector will feel, but what the Bloomberg line will depict and show. I therefore wish to recognize Peter Grauer of Bloomberg. So we would like to see good news all the time, huh?
We would like to see good news all the time, too, and thank you very much for the opportunity. The message that I would like to deliver is we have been citizens in this country performing our jobs now since 1993, and in fact just announced on Tuesday evening and Wednesday morning our new Russian language news service on the Bloomberg terminal, as well as additional functionality with regard to what's going on in the local capital markets. We are firm believers that, in fact, this market, in terms of not only the local economy, but the role that Russia plays in the global economy, is obviously becoming much more relevant to the way the world operates today. And in fact, our business in Russia today is growing at 4 times the rate of our business elsewhere in the world. And I'm happy to say our business overall is growing very positively. I think the one message that I would like to leave this group with is that the issue of transparency and fair disclosure is critically important in attracting foreign investment. It is something that we have built our company on for the last 28 years and will continue to do so going forward. We are very much an ambassador in some respects for what happens in Russia. We have over 340,000 subscribers around the world that use our service every single day, rely on our news content. We have a growing news capability here in Russia that goes out over our service on a real-time basis and impacts the value of currencies and securities. The necessity to have good economic data so that the outside world can look and see the successes that are occurring in this country is certainly very, very important. So I would share my comments with some of our colleagues around the table and say that as Russia and the United States become closer together and as Russia becomes an increasingly important player in the global economy, the necessity to have transparency, good financial reporting, good disclosure is critically important to the overall confidence that you'll require to attract the kind of capital investment that John and others have talked about. Thank you for this opportunity.
I wanted to recognize Boris Titov, who represents a public organization